Hello, friends in Devilry. It's been a while since I've released a video. A lot has happened in my life that prevented me from making official content. But as some of you know, we've been following the local bad actors anyway. Between some family health scares and creating, running a business, working my job, volunteering at my nonprofit, it's been a lot. But I found some free time now that Pride Month is over, and before I really dig in on my next project. But first, a little teaser. I've spoken with Dominick Bonny, and he's given me permission to read all of his articles publicly. Now, I think it's super important to pay journalists, especially independent journalists, for their work. So, if you can, please subscribe to his Substack. I will make sure that the link is in the comments. However, Mr. Bonny and I agree that some of these articles need to be read publicly so more people have access to them. Starting tomorrow, you're going to start hearing me read them, and I mean all of them, in regards to the bad actors in our community. This includes, of course, our local Grace City cult and elected officials that can't seem to stop being embroiled in some kind of scandal. If you're interested and want to hear these articles, tune in and keep an eye out for a new segment we are calling The Bonny Files. And just so you know, there are more than 200 articles in this, so we're going to be trying to release them daily and at the very least weekly. To begin, we have to start somewhere in the middle. To read Mr. Bonny's articles about the Seven Mountains Mandate, a guiding principle that drives Christian nationalist cults like Grace City Church. And to be clear, any opinions or commentary I give about the articles are that of Progressive Devilry and no one else. So, without further ado, I give you episode 1 from The Bonny Files.
Bonny Files, research time, journalists.
Dominick Bonny reports The Seven Mountains Mandate, a look at Dominion theology. A former Grace City Church member highlights an apocalyptic prophecy that has moved from the fringe of American evangelicalism to the mainstream. By Dominick Bonny, December 11th, 2022 at 4:22 p.m. A picture of a majestic purple mountain with 7 numbers and a list of government, media, arts and entertainment, business, education, religion, family. The 7 social, quote-unquote, mountains some evangelical Christian sects believe Christians need to control in order to bring about the, quote, second coming of Jesus Christ. Part 1, The Seven Mountains Mandate. About a year ago, I did a series of interviews with a man who had grown up in the orbit of the McPherson family. He was a witness to the birth of Grace Covenant Church and watched its metamorphosis into Grace City Church. Part of his story has been told, but there is still plenty more to tell. For privacy and safety reasons, I changed his name and refer to him as Teddy. One of the things Teddy mentioned during our first interview was the Seven Mountains Mandate, or, as it's sometimes known, the Seven Mountains Prophecy. He said it was something discussed in GCC circles as he was growing up, although not widely and not in mixed company. I had never heard of the term before and asked him to explain. He said the idea is that in order to bring about the second coming of Christ, Christians must dominate 7 social mountains, and proceeded to list a few: government, education, media, business, etc. He said the idea was pretty fringe. I made a note to look it up, and did, but almost dismissed it as too out there to take seriously. But about 6 months later, I was watching a documentary series called Hillsong, a megachurch exposed. It's a fascinating series about an international evangelical Christian megachurch that attracted wealthy and famous members, most notably Justin Bieber. Near the end, the Seven Mountains Mandate came up, and it made me rethink my inclination not to take the concept seriously. So I started doing more research and found that the idea had caught on in Christian nationalist circles in recent years. It's a form of dominion theology, which is a group of Christian political ideologies that seek to institute a nation which is governed by Christians and based on their understandings of biblical law, according to Wikipedia. As I learned more about it, the more it seemed to help explain some of Grace City Church's actions in recent years. In a 2013 new members intake workbook, GCC leaders write their goal is to saturate our region so thoroughly that it's impossible to live in Wenatchee without regularly bumping into a disciple-making disciple of Jesus. Here are a few examples. Government. GCC leaders have and do urge their followers to run for elected office and make concerted efforts to court elected officials and law enforcement officers. Chelan County Sheriff Brian Burnett, former, is a member and has been vocal about how his religious beliefs impact how he approaches his job. Pastor Josh McPherson led a lawsuit against Washington State Governor Jay Inslee over public health mandates during the COVID pandemic and penned more than one manifesto in which he claimed religious leaders like him are above the law because his authority comes from God. Picture of various GCC leaders and other elected officials with a Wenatchee News article that says, "We do not consent," a Facebook post by Josh McPherson, Wenatchee.news. Although McPherson wrote that he, quote, led the lawsuit over COVID mandates, it was Wenatchee Mayor pro tempore Jose Cuevas front and center at the photo op. It's important to note that Jose Cuevas is currently a Wenatchee City Council member. GCC also held religious exemption seminars for its members to help folks skirt COVID vaccine requirements from employers. Chelan County Commissioners also awarded the Chelan County Regional Justice Center's jail chaplaincy contract to Grace City Church, although neither party has provided any explanation of how GCC intends to minister to the LGBTQ+ or trans inmates. Education. Wenatchee School Board members Catherine Thomas, former, and Julie Norton, current, are both GCC members, according to GCC's membership directory. After a GCC-organized protest resulted in a Wenatchee School Board meeting being shut down, they failed to gain the 3-member majority they needed to dominate the school board. The blowback from that is one of the reasons why Matt Van Bogart narrowly lost his bid for Maria Iniguez's seat. Since losing that election, Van Bogart and other members have taken to harassing the district with frivolous public records requests. Public school students and their teachers even helped build Josh McPherson's house. Media. Dave Bernstein, the brand manager of the local Town Square media stations, is a GCC member who provides a large local platform to Josh McPherson and other GCC members like Brian Burnett to advertise their events and communicate their campaign messages. GCC has its own multimedia production team and publishing house, churning out videos, digital content, and print products that go out to thousands. Business. The executive director of the Chelan County PUD, Kirk Hudson, is a GCC elder. GCC members sit on the board of the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce, and large regional businesses like Ballard Ambulance are owned, operated, and largely staffed by GCC members. According to Teddy and other former members, GCC leaders have made a point of reaching out to and cultivating membership among the wealthy and influential members of the Wenatchee Valley Society, especially those in agriculture and construction. Teddy said it's one of the reasons they were able to raise more than $12 million from 863 donors to build their compound in the Sunny Slope neighborhood of Wenatchee. $4.5 million of that was raised in just 6 months. GCC even has its own construction company called Kingdom Builders Incorporated. It provides service to GCC at wholesale cost, essentially donating their profit to the church, wrote Josh McPherson. The KBI crew, the Kingdom Builders Incorporated, with Seth Ellis front and center. Ellis was allowed to quit his job as a captain with the Douglas County Fire District after it was discovered that he and another GCC member passed off forged vaccine cards to their superiors in an attempt to avoid getting vaccinated against COVID-19. So I reached out to Grace City Church to ask if they believe in or teach the Seven Mountains Mandate. They did not respond. I also reached out to a local pastor named Jerry Bebe, head pastor at the Wenatchee First Assembly of God, who said he had heard of it. It's been around a long time. The original idea, I think, was these are the 7 areas of greatest influence in our culture. So as Christians, we need to use them to have a positive effect for biblical values, etc. But in today's culture, in my humble opinion, It is more of a militant takeover, often by force to control and manipulate behavior, he wrote. Jesus told Peter, "Put down the sword." His plan was never to force himself on anyone. Biblical values cannot be legislated. Christ wants to change one heart at a time as people are willing to yield to him. As individuals are changed, organizations and even governments can be changed. God's kingdom at this time should be an organic movement from bottom to top, not a forceful takeover from top to bottom. I'd like to speak to any other former members of Grace City Church or any church in the North Central Washington that teaches the Seven Mountains Mandate. Part 2, a brief history of Grace City Church. GCC was born in the living rooms of Kashmir, Washington. It started as a small group of families rotating between members' homes and quickly grew into a body of believers who needed more space. Pause to read history. The first page of a new member intake workbook, which was later recalled by GCC leaders. Within a year of inception, GCC membership was too large to hold services at any one family's home, so they moved to Greg McPherson's Life Track offices, and church planter and founding pastor Josh McPherson committed his vision for the future of GCC to paper, drafting a church planting document in 2007. Here's a picture of that. Josh McPherson, Ray McPherson, Eric Chase, and Adam James with Grace Covenant's Articles of Incorporation circa 2008. Grace Covenant's growth was rapid, and they quickly outgrew the Life Track offices and moved to the Riverside Center in Kashmir. Another picture of Josh McPherson leading worship at the Riverside Center in Kashmir. So they moved to the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Wenatchee, which is where Mark Driscoll first preached in Wenatchee and inspired Grace City's security team of armed sheepdogs, according to Teddy. Next is a group photo of Grace City Covenant Church members at the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Wenatchee not long after moving from Kashmir. This time it took a few years, but they again outgrew their space and again had to move. This time they relocated to the Wenatchee Performing Arts Center downtown. Throughout its growth, a consistent presence and voice of authority for Josh McPherson and GCC was Mark Driscoll. He continued to come to Wenatchee and preach at GCC while they were at the PAC. Since they built their compound, Mark Driscoll's influence has not appeared to wane. The book he wrote with his wife Grace, Real Marriage, The Truth About Sex, Friendship, and Life Together, is required reading for GCC couples, according to multiple ex-members as well as those who passed through. Grace Driscoll was a featured speaker at The Stand Women's Conference at GCC last year and can be seen briefly in his recap video here. A woman who attended one of the couple's courses with her husband gave me a copy of the workbook that accompanies the Driscoll's Real Marriage book, A Respectful Wife Introduction. I'll write about that and more on GC's history in a future piece.
Hit that subscribe button to stay updated with us. And any sources we've used in today's episode are below or are available on our website at progressivedevilry.com.